Well, I'm here looking like Dark Willow again, so you know what that means. Hello, my lovely friends, it's Margaret, and it's time to nerd out about The Wicked King by Holly Black. I probably haven't gotten my most anticipated reads of 2019 up just yet, considering that I am filming both of these videos on the same day, but I got my hands on it. Hopefully by now you've seen the vlog. You probably already know some of my thoughts, but for those of you that didn't want to be spoiled, because there are spoilers in the vlog, I am doing a spoiler-free, and for those of you that want spoilers, I have 2 whole pages of notes. There will be a spoiler-filled video where I talk about many of my thoughts on what went down in this guy. Just look somewhere up here for that, or at the end of the video, it will be linked then. This is the sequel to The Cruel Prince, which was one of my favorite reads of last year. It was in my top 10. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it up top somewhere, or up top. I didn't think it was possible to love this book more than I loved The Cruel Prince, and yet somehow it happened. I did. It was amazing. I gave it 5 stars. Also 5 stars. Like if there was a 5-star stronger than 5 stars, I gave it to this book, even though this book absolutely, you know what I'm thinking about. Yeah, that's how I felt at the very end. But in a good way, in the best possible way, in the way that, like, I'm so super excited and hyped for Queen of Nothing. I have to wait a whole year. At least with Cruel Prince, I only had to wait 10 months. Hey, it's okay. We don't always make smart decisions. Sometimes we just have to go with our gut and do what we want. A lesson that I learned from Jude. As you can see, I quite thoroughly enjoyed my time reading this. I tabbed it all up. It took me 3 days to fly through this thing, and honestly, it probably would have only taken me 2 days, except the first night that I started reading this, I was very tired, and I just couldn't. It wasn't even that I couldn't keep my eyes open. I could not physically hold the book up. It kept hitting me in the face, and after about the 3rd time, I was like, you know what? I should probably not give myself a black eye over this book. If you've been living under a rock or just avoiding popular booktube for the last year, The Cruel Prince starts out with Jude Duarte. At the age of 7, she witnessed the murder of her parents by a fairy general, and then he proceeded to take her twin sister, and her older sister, who was also his daughter, to Elfheim, where they ended up growing up as though they were his children, even though technically they were not, but because he's a fairy and they're bound by honor or something, he had to take them in. Jude grew up her whole life afraid because fairies are so much more powerful. She has lived her entire life seeing all of the ways that fairies can hurt and manipulate humans, and all of the ways that humans just basically are miserable in fairy, even when they make deals because they want to be there. Jude and her twin sister go about it in different ways. They both want to get the protection of one of the high fairies. Her sister's way is kind of just to find one to marry into a fairy family and then get protection that way. Jude, however, wants to just basically be the best fighter that she can be. She wants to become a fairy knight and serve the king, and if she does that, then she will be basically untouchable. And then, as things happen in books, everything just goes to hell in a handbasket for her. Both books were thoroughly entertaining, such a fast-paced plot. They really are character-driven novels, which I really like. We get to sit with the characters. We get to see the characters kind of try and work through their problems, everything that happens to them. We get to see them deal with a variety of situations. This book takes just about everything and then turns it up a couple of notches. The enemies to lovers is strong in this book, and I absolutely adored it. It made me so happy. Do you see all the purple tabs are my favorite parts. Some of them are favorite quotes, and some of them are OTP scenes, and there's so much purple in this book, and it makes me so happy, guys. It just does. It does. Does it end in a way that makes Margaret happy? Of course not. Absolutely not. I am going to be miserable for the next year because I need to know what happens next, Holly. How could you do this to me, Holly? I thought we were friends. Actually, we're not friends. We're not friends at all. She doesn't even know I exist. So this starts out, Jude is basically just kind of hanging on by the skin of her teeth. She is just barely able to keep her hand on all of the different threads that she has going to keep things from falling apart, and they are continually trying to fall apart. She doesn't get a break. She doesn't get rest. She just is on having to be 100% at all times. Part of that is because she is stubborn, but part of it is also because Cardan is stubborn. And they're both instead of working together to not die, they're sitting here butting heads and just being utterly ridiculous. They are a mess, and I love it. They are 2 of my favorite characters I have ever read, honestly. Like, even though, like, there are very few redeeming qualities about either of them, I still love them so much and want them to be happy. I don't understand this. This is not normally how it happens. But I also see so much, like, room for growth, I guess. And I feel like possibly we've had some people learning to be better, possibly. Basically, they're both stubborn as heck and they need to chill. They need to, like, take 5 seconds to relax and consider their options. But it is still such a fantastic dynamic. Like, there's so much tension between the two of them, and really, that is what drives so much of the book. So much of the book. Even when they are not in each other's presence, there is so, like, you can feel the tension. You can feel the tension, especially on Jude's part, because Jude is, like, not okay with this. Jude is literally fighting against Cardan in every possible way. And one of the best things is you can see them just really fighting against how they feel, because they have been told for so long that how they feel is wrong and unnatural and weird because he is Fae and she is human. This book is basically them fighting against the parts of them that want to come to terms with the fact that, hey, there's something there. One of the other things that I liked about this book is that it focused a lot less on Jude's family. I mean, we do get to see them, but we also get to see more of the world outside of her family. So we get to know the ghost and the bomb and the roach a little bit more. We get to know a character that I will not mention because that's a spoiler, but if you've read the book, you know who I'm talking about. I called it. I knew it was her. I knew it. I knew it. We get to see more of Fairy. We're not just looking at Elfhame. We do get to see a little bit about the Kingdom of the Undersea. We get to see the Court of Termites again. We get to see so many more characters in this book than I feel we got to see in the last one. It was Cardan and his group and Jude and her family, and then basically, like, we got a little bit from other characters, but really it wasn't all that much. And so in this one, we get to kind of explore those characters a little bit more, which is really nice. And this plot gets an A+ from me. It kept me involved. It kept me worried the entire time. Like, you don't get, there are not many breaks for you to go, like, you just basically, they do stuff, and even when they do good stuff, you're just sitting there going, okay, so how can this get screwed up? Because you know it's going to get worse, no matter how good it seems it's getting. I did see the twist coming, because I always see the twist coming, and it still hurt. It still hurt as much as if I probably hadn't seen it coming. Probably hurt more, because I knew it was coming. And so every time some certain things happened, I was just sitting there going, okay, but this is gonna happen. And this is making this moment that I should be happy, it's making this moment hurt. Like, there were no moments of true pure joy, because I was like, oh, but everything's gonna go so wrong by the end of this book, because the title of the next book is I'm sorry, her titles are spoilers, okay? The title of this book was a spoiler for The Cruel Prince. The title of the next book is a spoiler for this one, okay? Okay, let's just cover that. It's a little annoying. I knew how this was going to end. I knew I was not going to like it, and so that kind of hovered over everything else in the book, which for some reason I oddly like. That's my basic, like, thing about this entire book, is that things would happen, and I'd be like, and yet I am somehow weirdly into this. There are so many ways, so many small changes that she could have done to change these plots and these characters and have it absolutely not work for me. I could hate certain characters in this book more than I hate Tamlin, and yet I love them with my whole heart, despite the fact that they have very few redeeming qualities. Please don't ask me to explain that. I don't understand it at all. I just loved how the story just kind of, like, it would pull you in and then let you think you were safe. And then it would pull you in again and get you, and then, listen, like, there was a flow to this story, and there were it just was good. It was great. I loved how it flowed. There were a lot of things that were introduced in The Wicked King that I believe are set up characters and objects and things that come into play in this book that I think are going to have a huge part in Queen of Nothing, especially probably towards the beginning of Queen of Nothing, because it seems very obvious where we're going to go from this book, and yet it probably is not going to go that way, because this book didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. I do feel like that even though we were seeing more characters, there was a little bit less variety in what was happening than in Cruel Prince, because in Cruel Prince we had, like, seeing her at lessons and seeing her doing training with Matic and seeing her doing things that I can't mention because they're spoilers, and other things I can't mention because they're spoilers, and other things that I still can't mention because they're spoilers. And this was very much like Jude deals with Cardan, Jude deals with the council, oh no, Jude has to go deal with Cardan again. We didn't see Jude doing quite as much. Like, she did a lot, but, like, there wasn't quite as much of variety in what she was doing in this book as there was in the first book. Didn't really mind it, but sitting back and thinking about it, yeah, that is something to keep in context. But we did get to see her go to a place in Fairy that we haven't been before, so that was nice. We also got to see her kind of in a position that we have not seen her in before. Actually, probably a couple of positions that we haven't seen her in before. That's what she said. Namely, I'm thinking about the thing that happens at the beginning of part 2. I didn't see that coming. That was a surprise. Honestly, I was more surprised at things in the middle than I was by the end. One of the really interesting things that I liked about Holly's world building is that there is still, despite the fact that Jude has grown up in Fairy for the last like 10 years of her life, there's still such a difference between her and the Fae. And the way that we really see that is there's a scene, and this isn't like spoilery or anything. I was like a whole page of different fairy people talking, and then we get Jude like going, hey, hold on, hold up, I get a say in this. And her voice is so jarring because she speaks so differently. It's not quite as jarring against things that Cardan says, but especially against some of the older Fae, her voice is just so like, it's like a snap. It's like it doesn't belong in the situation almost, because she still is not as formal. She still isn't as like ancient as they are. So she uses more modern phrasings, and she doesn't feel like her tone needs to be fancy. That was just a really interesting thing for me to notice. Like, that was one of those small detail things that really tells you that the author was putting a whole bunch of thought into things like dialogue and how characters interact. And one other thing that I do want to mention is there's kind of a cute little secondary romance that gets mentioned. We don't get to see very much with it. I'm hoping we see more of it in the next book, but it's kind of cute, and it came out of nowhere in a way, but I loved it. It added like this gorgeous, like delicious little level of tension over scenes that you wouldn't think there would be tension over, and I loved it. I thought it was great. There are so many things I could say about this book, but I don't want to get into spoilers. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, because everyone should get the chance to experience this book as best as they can. So if you don't want spoilers, I'm not going to mention them in this video, but if you do want spoilers, you can look for the next video somewhere up here. That is it for my review of The Wicked King by Holly Black. Again, 5 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait for Queen of Nothing to come out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Also, hit that subscribe button. I make videos 2 to 3 times a week about books and writing, and I would love to see your lovely face here on a regular basis. If you want more of me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Those are both at the word nerd with a 3 in nerd instead of the E. That's it for now, my friends. I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!